Yep. Okay, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please. Got it.
Carr. Cruz.
Here.
Daniels.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
Gaylord.
Here.
Guerra. Hanson. Harris. Kennedy.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Natoli.
Here, finally.
Thank you.
Oh, you're all waiting. Last guy in gets the looks.
Peters. Cerna. And Terry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I will note that there are a bunch of other people that didn't make it down, so we do appreciate it.
My apologies.
With that, will the clerk read the TV announcement?
This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District is cablecast live without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is being closed captioned and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated on Saturday, July 29th, 2017 at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker form located on the table at the back of the chambers and give it to the clerk. Speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Also at this time, please silence your cell phone until the conclusion of today's meeting.
Thank you. And with that, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And since it's his first meeting, we'll have Dr. Ayala lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, we'll move on to special presentations. And our first presentation is the Sac Metro Air Quality Management District Board recognition of Larry Green upon his retirement. So, we're actually going to vote? We need to vote on this, right?
Yes.
You got a quorum. You
can. So with that, we do have a resolution. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Lee, a second by Cruz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Lee's been
So with that, I think we're going to take a picture. But first, I don't know if we would like to say anything. I know I spoke last night at the reception, but Larry, thanks so much for the years of service that you put in. I know a lot of us spoke at the last meeting too, but thanks for being here. Thanks for getting the new guy up and going before you head out the door. But again, thanks for everything that you've done for this region and for this organization. And directors, I don't know if anybody else would like to comment before we take a picture.
Sure. Well, just briefly, and I know you had a nice reception yesterday, and I got there late again, but I did get there before it all broke up, and I think certainly to Larry's credit, not only his work here in this community has been recognized obviously by this board and many others that were there yesterday, but I think throughout the region and the state, and I think I was very, very impressive that Larry, in addition to obviously paying attention to what's important here at home, certainly in our air district and to the communities that we all serve. But I think the leadership he's provided certainly throughout the state and nationally have helped advance work that has provided for better quality of life, certainly for people in this community, but in communities throughout the state and nation. And he's a real gentleman and a scholar. I've certainly appreciated the opportunity to work with him, and I kidded him about being a pain in his hind end at times with some of the questions that I come at with him over the years. But again, I think it's been reflective, obviously, of the concerns that may come to us from different sectors that are affected by the rules and regulations, but I've always been in the spirit of working in a cooperative fashion, and I've really appreciated his leadership and work. And again, I know that your staff has been solidly behind you and following your lead on many, many items, and that's been good, because that's part of a great leader too, is the ability to motivate people and to assemble a good team. And I think you leave your successor in charge of a great organization. But I want to personally thank you, Larry, for all your work and your dedication to making for a better environment, and certainly to serving the citizens of this community for all the many years that you have. So congratulations.
Thank you. Director Frost.
Larry, I just want to thank you for so many things. You're a consummate professional from the very moment I came here. Every time I called you, you helped me and answered my questions. When I came to you for issues in my district or in my city, you and the staff have been so responsive, and right up to most recently, I know you've been working hard behind the scenes helping on a grant, and I know all of you did. Thank you so much. It's not approved yet, I guess, but we're working that. Oh, it is? Okay. So, you know, the thing I like about you the most is that it wasn't political. It was all about air quality and our communities and the people that live within them, and it shows the way you lead and the things you did, and we have appreciated your professionalism and all that you've done over time, and we're going to miss you, but wish you all the happiness in your retirement, and we know we're in good hands moving forward, so congratulations and best wishes for happiness and health and all good things.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Larry, it's been a pleasure working with you for the last couple of years. I think that your stellar leadership style is exemplary, and when I got on the board, I certainly heard about it, and seeing it up front and in personal was very reassuring. I think that the time in which you dedicated to this organization and in this field is well-deserved retirement. Wish you the best of luck, but you know, I did want to acknowledge that there hasn't been anyone more stellar and professional.
Thank you. Director Cruz.
You told me coming into this is going to be a steep learning curve, and you were right. But you helped me get along there as far as learning the different nuances within the air quality world, and I really appreciate it. And I think everybody else has said the same thing. Your leadership is stellar and beyond reproach in my mind. You're going to be sorely missed. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to take a picture. Good. Does everybody want to go? Come on, down to sure. Didn't we do that last time? Do this. Like, I know I was just down here.
Going to have you all shoulder in as close as you can so I could get a nice. And again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. That's right, I'm a photographer. I need to invest in a good camera is what I need to do. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go.
Got crickets.
Okay, even with that noise, we'll go ahead and continue until somebody runs in here to tell us to get out. So we'll move on to special presentations B, Business Environmental Resources Center recognition of Larry Green for his service and collaboration.
I'll go fast, Larry, given that we've got... Good morning, Chair Terry, members of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. My name is Clark Witten, and I'm the Burke Division Director. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to honor Larry. For many years, Larry has been a staunch supporter of Burke, the Business Environmental Resource Center. Larry has served on our board for over 10 years, and he's helped us understand how to help businesses understand some of the Air District rules and how you comply. And that helps keep them in business. One example of Larry's guidance included when we were asked to partner with AQMD and work with the area gas stations. So there's over 400 gas stations in our region. The state had mandated a new enhanced vapor recovery phase 2 requirement, which is a fancy way of saying that there's a boot on the gas pump that captures the vapors. So we partnered with AQMD and we went out and we met with every gas station in the region. We held workshops, and it ended up that the district was the leading district in the state for compliance. And importantly, a lot of these gas stations stayed in business. Larry's also been a huge supporter of Burke's Sustainable Business Program. In fact, he helped create the transportation air quality category as part of the SB certification. So for Larry's long-standing support of Burke, we would like to present Larry Green with this recognition item, Essential Piece. The centerpiece is clear to highlight how Larry has been an essential piece of Burke. Please help me in honoring Larry Green.
All right. Very nice.
As you said, a lot of years of working, tough years at times, but we got through a lot of issues, and thank you so much. The folks here are very professional, and it's a real benefit to the businesses in Sacramento it's a real service that we provide, that you provide. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
And all of you folks. Yes, let's get a
Could
picture.
we get a-
Yeah, right here.
Larry's still in charge.
Pretty fancy chrome you got there.
You can go first and I'll go after you. Okay.
I know.
Okay, thank you for that. And do we need a recess? It's just a drill?
It would go off in this room.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They have zoned.
All right. So with that, we'll move on to the Air Pollution Control Officer's report.
We're good. Okay. It's like we're okay to stay.
Very good. It's a good way to wake up the new guy.
Yeah.
What are the emergency procedures? All right. Thank you very much, Board. Is it? Oh, sorry about that. Thank you very much, Board. It's a pleasure to be here. Here to give you my very first APCO report. We're going to make it very quick, but there are some important items that we want to share with you. And then we have a couple of speakers later on the agenda to sort of amplify some of the points that I'm going to make. But before I start my report, I do want to acknowledge the very smart decision that this board made to ensure that Larry and I had at least a month or so of continuity, because obviously I think that is going to lead to a smooth transition, not necessarily for myself, but really most importantly for you, the board, and also for our staff. So I just want to acknowledge that. But anyways, let me get through a few slides very briefly. Here is a listing of the items that we are going to be covering for you. I'm going to tag team this with Jamil Moens, our Administrative Services Manager. And the first item is just a simple report that we're ready to go. Obviously, there's much to be done in the near term. Technically, this is week 2 for me, so we're just getting started. But as I said, my priority, and I think you will agree with this, because I know that we had this conversation as I was going through the process. I really need to make sure that I get integrated into the team, because obviously the team is the most important aspect of what we do, and a key area for our accomplishments. So we're doing a lot with Larry's help, we are doing a lot in terms of just assessing the internal programs, and then just getting an understanding in terms of what's near-term priority, what is longer term, making sure again that we have continuity, and not only with our staff but also the industries and the entities that we regulate that care about making sure that there is good continuity of operations. And obviously, we want to continue and amplify the accomplishments that the team and the district under Larry's leadership has already accomplished. A lot of the APCO time in the near term is going to be reaching out, not only to you individually as board members, as directors, but most importantly as the partners that have been so critical in building what Larry led, and over the last few years we've all heard about that. And here's just a small sample of some of the organizations, some of the entities, some of the industries that have been very gracious and have reached out and say, welcome, we want to get together with you, we want to meet with you to figure out how we go forward. And I think that speaks volumes not only to this board, but also to Larry and what the staff have accomplished over the years in terms of working with others to accomplish our clean air goals. In terms of actual priorities, obviously, we got to keep the lights on and the ship moving. We are in the middle of fire season, and you're getting our notifications from our great communications office. We want to continue to keep an eye on where summer ozone goes. So those are the priorities. We need to make sure that we maintain our key programs. The programs in terms of investing transportation funding dollars, as you're going to hear, our planning for air quality, our permitting activities, our enforcement activities, those are all the things that I'm already getting embedded into, and those are going to become priorities for us again because there's a real impact in terms of the folks that we regulate and that we work with. And then the exciting part is really longer term, what is coming down the pipe. And you're going to hear a little bit of that from me and also from the speakers later. One of the things that we wanted to do for you is to get an update on the major legislation that has been put forth just very recently. And the reason I want to put this before you is because obviously there's some real impacts, but most importantly, this is going to be a great opportunity for the Sacramento region. And this is one of the things that you're going to hear me talk over and over again as I work with you and our staff work with you, because I think this is a great opportunity, and I certainly don't want to miss the chance to be strategic and to be collaborative and to be smart about how we benefit. Because obviously when you have dollars to spend, as this legislative action has created the potential for, I think we can achieve a lot of our objectives for clean air, and then prove that there is climate action to be done at the local level in an effective way. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jamil Moens, who is going to give you an update on our employment outreach, which is one of the areas that the board asked from the last meeting we had. Jamil?
Good morning. We had provided some information earlier this year on some statistics on our workforce around gender and race, and we wanted to just come back to you and share a little bit more information about our outreach efforts in this area to ensure that we have a diverse workforce that reflects our community. And so this is just some supplementary information that we wanted to make available to you. And one of the things we do, first of all, is when we recruit folks into the organization, most of them have lots of experience already. So oftentimes we're not hiring folks right out of college or right out of high school or technical institutions. They've already had several years of experience in the air industry or some form of industry. But to supplement that, the fact that we actually do go to college job fairs and we hire interns. So we have college interns that we try to utilize, and some of those have turned into permanent jobs, so we do have some entry-level positions. And so we're very active with our college internship program and job fairs. In addition to that, we have a high school program that's called Cristo Rey. And Cristo Rey is it's a high school that provides quality college preparatory education to urban young people who live in communities with limited educational opportunities. And the interesting thing about this program is that all Cristo Rey students, they pay approximately 60% of their own education costs through a unique work-study program. And so we participate in that work-study program, so they're actually paying for their education, and they have been some great students. We do this every year. I think we've been doing that for several years now, and we'll continue to do that. In addition, we have Civic Spark Fellows, and so since its inception, I believe 3 years ago, we have staff that coordinates and works closely with this program, and it provides to recent college graduates who are in the environmental field an opportunity to get real-life experience. So we have, we've had 3 or 4 Civic Spark interns on site and in our building, and have worked on some fantastic projects. In fact, I sat on a mock interview panel 2 days ago with someone from some other agencies came in and joined us, and Shelley, our staff person who coordinates this, to give them an opportunity, because now they're out, they've served their internship or their fellowship with us, and they're out looking for real jobs. So we set up a mock interview panel, and we interviewed them, and all shared some tips and tricks that might help to give them experience to go and find that right fit kind of job for them. So that's another great program we have, and some of those folks could potentially be, folks that work with us here at the district. The other area we spend a lot of time is on internal staff development. We have lots of internal promotions, lateral opportunities to move people around, trying to, again, get the right folks in the right place, and that's a priority for us. Externally, we do a lot of outreach. So in addition to the open, posting our open positions on mainstream recruiting sites such as governmentjobs.com, Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor is another one, we also reach out to the Sacramento Metro Chamber, the Black Chamber of Commerce, and other air districts, other California air districts. In addition, we're continuing to reach out to other ethnic chambers, and now are considering, our HR staff is looking at reaching out to trained military veterans through the Work of Warriors program. So as you know, there are so many ways to look at diversity. There's gender, there's age. I think we have 5 generations in the district at this point in time. Race, ethnicity. Our staff speaks over a dozen different languages. We foster inclusion. We have professional folks, technical folks. So there's lots of ways to look at diversity. And when we do recruitment, we look at all those aspects. We value all those aspects. We consider all those aspects. And at the end of the day, we're trying to get the most highly qualified person in our organization to continue doing the good work that the district does. With that being said, of course, staff is open to ways to expand our outreach activities and to continue ensuring that we have a diverse workforce. So if the board members or the community have other ideas, a way to reach out to continue soliciting that pool of candidates, we'd be happy to hear about that. The next item I wanted to talk about was an item that Director Natoli asked about at our last board meeting, and it was related to the language we use in the agenda and how we take action as a board. And a little backdrop to this, and the question was really, you're using the language pass a resolution, pass a motion, and that might seem a little awkward. I'm used to seeing approve or adopt, and that's true. All of those languages are very common, and what we did when we launched the Novus Agenda software about a year ago is we went out and did a research project to say, well, what's the best language? What's the best practices out there in terms of languages to use? We looked at what the county of Sacramento uses. We looked at the city of Sacramento and every city that's represented here, what your board agenda packets look like. We looked statewide. We, on the California Clerk Association, did some research. And what we found is that all of those are fairly acceptable, and it kind of is varied. And so we wanted to land on something that we felt was consistent. And when the board takes an action, they make a motion. So the motion part comes into, they make a motion to either pass a resolution or take an action. So, and then that motion passes, or the motion's rejected. Or the motion's approved, or the motion's rejected. So it really could be used any way. We landed on a pattern at the time that said, well, passing a resolution, or because you take action by either a motion or a resolution, that's how the board takes an action. And so we said, well, let's just call it that consistently, and in our notes it's that the resolution was passed, or the minutes, the action was passed, the motion passed. However, we really appreciated Director Natoli's question, because that caused us to go back and look a little bit deeper. So working with Kathy Pittard in the District Counsel's office and the Clerk's office, we sat down and said, can this even yet be improved? Because we're always about improvement here. And we looked at it and we decided, it's kind of redundant to say pass the motion in our request for recommendation, because that's the act you always do. So what we wanted to do was say, let's take the action verb, which is authorize the APCO to take some action, to conduct a public hearing, to declare a day, a special day. So what we've done in this board packet, and what is our current practice, and we hope that this meets all needs and is clear as we can be. The most important thing is consistency. We want it to be consistent and be accurate and reflect the board's action. So where we've landed is that in the recommendation, we will say the action verb that we're looking for from the board, whether it's authorize, conduct, approve. And for motions, in the case of a resolution, it will say approve. A resolution, action verb, authorizing, conducting, approving, declaring. So you'll see that reflected in your board packet. We think that's landed on best practice. We again went back and did some additional research, and it really, they're all accepted approaches. And so that's how we're proposing to move forward, and of course would be happy to take any feedback and input on that process.
Mr. Chair. Just real quickly, I certainly thank Jamil and the staff for looking at this. I didn't want anybody having sleepless nights over this. It wasn't all that big of a deal, but obviously I think you give a lot of thought to it, and you're very diligent in that respect, and so I appreciate it. But I didn't expect it to set up a firestorm, just suggesting that you might take a look at the language. So anyway, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Lee?
Just a quick question in terms of the recruitment. I didn't hear you mention any sort of festivals, ethnic festivals out there. Is that something that would be in the interest of recruitment efforts as well?
I think it would be, and I can look over my as we have our HR person here, but I'd like to get back to you and let you know if we already are participating, and if not, I will definitely pass that information to our HR team, because I think that's a fantastic idea.
And in the event that the district is not participating, would be the inquiry point with the community members? Who would they call?
They could contact our HR manager. He's our program manager over that, and that would be Pat Smith.
Okay.
And I can give an extension, which is 4808. So
maybe if you can just send me an email offline, because folks are asking, and that seems to be the temperature in the region to go in the direction of diversity and making sure that the workforce represents the community. So I'm glad you're on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So back to me, and this is the last slide, so we can move on to consent. Obviously, after we address any additional questions the board may have. One of the great traditions that Larry started at the district and as part of the board process is to introduce new staff, new employees. And I think this gets to the point of giving you a sense in terms of who we are bringing on board. So I'm going to continue that, because I think it's just such a great example of how caring this board is for the staff, and we certainly want to continue to promote that because certainly makes us a better team. So one of the great honors, I guess, that I will have as we go forward is to bring to you a brief description of our new employees. And this time around, we have one new person. So because we have one person, we included a little bit more detail because I think it's pertaining to the conversation. Our new employer is one of our new planners, Gina O'Neill, and she's in the audience. Gina, maybe you can wave. She came to us after from SAC-RT, and she's got about 10 years experience in the transportation sector. She's an expert at writing grants, and she's very involved in the community. But one of the things that we want to highlight for you is in her short 6 months, she is already on a winning path because she already got obviously working with others in the district and outside, 2 grants approved that are coming to our district. One from the California Energy Commission so that we can do a zero-emission vehicle readiness study for our region. And the other one, I think, is the one that Director Frost was talking about in terms of this very innovative ride-sharing program out of the San Juan School District. And we're still waiting for another very important federal program for low or no emission transit buses for our region. So I think it's a testament of what she brings to the district, but also to this board and the agency in terms of the caliber of our employees and again the things that we can do together. So congratulations and welcome, Gina.
Great.
And with this, Chair Terry, this concludes the APCO report. Unless you have any questions, we can move on to the consent agenda. Back to you.
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any items that the members would like to pull? Do we have any comment cards?
No, we do not.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move consent.
Second. Motion from Cruz, a second by Natoli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Calendar carries. Then we'll move on to discussion items, and we're going to take these out of order. Without objection, we'll take them out of order. So we'll move on to item 8, Electrify American Green City Plan for Sacramento.
Good morning, Chair Terry and members of the board. My name is Jennifer Gress, and I'm the Policy Director for Mayor Darrell Steinberg. Thank you. And before I get started, I just wanted to say, I went to Larry's retirement party last night. I've been here, this morning. I see that there's no need to pile on all the love and respect for Larry, but I am just briefly going to do that. Larry, I just want to say, it's been such a pleasure to work with you, both in my position in the mayor's office and in my prior position at the Air Resources Board. We've really appreciated your steady leadership and your positive attitude and your collaboration throughout everything we've worked on over the years. So we're really going to miss you. Moving to the agenda item at hand, I'm pleased to provide an update on Electrify America's proposed zero-emission vehicle investment plan, which is currently pending before the Air Resources Board. The ZEV investment plan represents a tremendous opportunity for Sacramento, and we look forward to working with you and other regional partners to maximize the benefits of this investment for our region. Let's start with a little background. What was the impetus for this investment plan? As you know, Volkswagen installed software on certain diesel vehicles that cheated emissions tests and emitted much higher levels of NOx emissions than were allowed by CARB and US EPA. Volkswagen was caught and proceeded to negotiate a number of settlement agreements, also referred to as consent decrees, with the US Department of Justice, US EPA, and CARB. As a result of the settlement, which is the largest settlement in history involving an automaker, a significant amount of money will be coming to California to address various aspects of the case. Not counting Volkswagen's cost to repair and buy back defective vehicles, a total of about $1.5 billion will come to California over the next 10 years. This slide summarizes the funds that will be directed to California specifically. First, Volkswagen, through its wholly owned subsidiary Electrify America, will directly invest $800 million to increase the use of ZEVs in California. For purposes of ZEV investments, Electrify America and VW are one and the same. Volkswagen will also pay a total of $423 million to fully mitigate excess NOx emissions. These funds will be placed in a mitigation trust, the expenditure of which will be directed by a lead agency appointed by the governor. Volkswagen will pay about $25 million to CARB for programs that support zero-emission vehicles for low-income residents. These are programs like the Enhanced Fleet Modernization Program that the district is currently working on. And Volkswagen will pay $179 million to CARB in penalties. Finally, Volkswagen will pay $86 million to the Attorney General's office to settle the state's claims around consumer fraud. The subject of my presentation today and CARB's hearing this afternoon is the ZEV investment plan. So under the settle agreement, Volkswagen is required to invest $2 billion over 10 years for the purpose to increase the use of ZEVs. $800 million, or 40% of that, is designated for California. This 10-year period is broken up into 4 investment cycles, with each cycle covering $200 million in investment over a 2.5-year period. For each investment cycle, VW is required to develop an investment plan explaining how it will invest the $200 million for that period. This plan is subject to approval by CARB, and in fact, CARB is considering approval of the first investment plan this afternoon. So what's in this investment plan? Overall, the plan is intended to demonstrate the benefits of ZEVs and increase the use of ZEVs. This slide shows the major categories proposed for investment. $45 million is for community charging in 6 metropolitan areas across the state: Fresno, Los Angeles, San Jose, San Diego, San Francisco, and most importantly, Sacramento. $75 million is to build a network of high-speed chargers along highways. And together, this investment in infrastructure will fund approximately 400 charging stations with 2,000 to 3,000 chargers. Next, $44 million is dedicated to establishing the first green city, both to showcase the benefits of ZEVs and increased access to ZEVs. We are very excited that Electrify America has chosen Sacramento as the first green city. $20 million is dedicated to public education initiatives, using various media to highlight the benefits of ZEVs and barriers to overcoming ZEV adoption. The remaining $16 million will cover Electrify America's operational costs. So the 2 main areas where Sacramento stands to benefit are the community chargers and the Green City Initiative. So let's talk a little bit more about the Green City Initiative. The Green City program is intended to concentrate investment in an area to promote transformational change. The first plan proposes an investment of $11 million for a total of 75 chargers and $33 million to develop a car-sharing program. The investment plan also identifies electric delivery fleets and e-taxis as potential areas of investment, but the initial focus will really be car sharing. The investment presents an important opportunity to build on the district's innovative Our Community Car Share program. District staff have been actively engaged with Electrify America, sharing information and helping to identify ways to leverage this early effort with more funding. In terms of the timeline for implementing this investment, Electrify America has already issued a request for proposals for car sharing and has begun the process to evaluate sites for charging stations. Throughout 2018, Electrify America will develop the car sharing program and obtain permits and construct charging stations, with the car sharing program set to launch in 2019. In the meantime, Electrify America will also explore other potential initiatives. Let's talk about the roles of Electrify America and the city. As I noted earlier, the money will not be paid to the city for it to spend. Rather, Electrify America will invest its money directly on projects and hire subcontractors and vendors to implement the investment. The city's role will involve permitting, granting access to sites, and generally enabling expeditious investment in the city. We will also help support and guide that investment and help to mobilize the region in order to realize benefits for all. Why is this investment so important? The investment is important because it allows us to build on the work we've already been doing in the region and helps to achieve our broader vision for zero-emission transportation in Sacramento. Some of the key principles characterizing this vision include increasing access to ZEVs by lower-income residents who live in disadvantaged communities, strengthening first-mile, last-mile connections to transit. Our system has a strong backbone, and we need to make it easier for people throughout the region to connect to it. Economic development. We envision Sacramento as a hub for the research and development of zero-emission technologies. We want to make the city a living laboratory, a test bed for innovative ideas. As the capital city with UC Davis nearby, CARB, and a culture of innovation, Sacramento is well suited to attract and foster strategic partnerships to advance the technology. Finally, everything we are doing is done with the idea of providing ladders of opportunity for our most disenfranchised and vulnerable residents. Our vision for zero-emission transportation isn't just about getting people around in cleaner vehicles. Our vision is about connecting people to opportunity, to employment, to education, to the doctors, to grocery stores. And we are seeking to promote new business models that strengthen economic and social mobility by offering internships to youth, job training, and ultimately good-paying, secure jobs in a growing field. This investment represents an exciting opportunity to showcase what we are doing and where we are going, and to demonstrate leadership in the transformation of our transportation system. The key to success will be partnership and collaboration. We enjoy strong regional partnerships on EVs, including with the district, SMUD, SACOG, Regional Transit, and many, many others in the region. We've already been working together through the Sacramento Area Plug-in Electric Vehicle Collaborative to understand the distribution of existing and future need, both with EVs and the charging infrastructure necessary to support them. The collaborative just released the EV Readiness and Infrastructure Plan, which will serve as a foundation to help guide investments. We look forward to continuing our work with you and are excited that you have brought on Dr. Ayala. His knowledge of and passion for ZEVs will be an important asset in this endeavor and our partnership moving forward. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on back to item 7, legislative update, and receive a presentation from Brendan Toig. He had me practice that even. I think I screwed it up anyway.
Good morning. Happy to be here today, and I too have to say how much I'll miss Larry Green and his leadership, and how much I admire him as both a leader but as a person. And you've talked about it, and others talked about it yesterday. But his ability to bring people together is just amazing. And so I wanted to thank you for everything, Larry, over the last 11 years. I'll start with a brief overview of where we are in the legislative session, and then discuss priority bills and issues. So this year, the February bill introduction deadline brought over 2,500 bills were introduced, and with well over 100 that commanded our attention. April included major first house deadlines, including policy and fiscal committees, as well as the deadline to pass bills out of the House in which they were introduced. And then budget subcommittees did the bulk of their work in March and April, and we saw another on-time budget. More recently, July 14th was the deadline to pass fiscal bills out of the second House policy committees, and July 21st was the deadline to pass non-fiscal bills out of second House policy committees. The legislature adjourned for the summer recess on July 20th, and then members will return on August 21st for the final sprint, before adjourning the first year of the session on September 15th. Most of the bills will be passed in that last week of the session or so, and the governor will have until October 15th to sign or veto those measures, take action on those. It's been a very busy year on our issues. Cap and trade has been one of the highest profile issues in the legislature this year, and there have been many other significant air quality related bills as well. So today I'll highlight the most important. Of course, cap and trade. After many twists and turns, the governor and the legislature passed a cap and trade extension package. It was a package of bills that both included the extension of the cap and trade program itself out to 2030, and then there was another bill, AB 617, with which I'll get into more detail, but that was air quality related bill specifically, and then on top of that there was ACA 1, which was requested by the Republicans, and there were a number of Republicans that voted for the cap and trade extension in the Assembly. And that bill is actually a constitutional amendment, and it must be approved by the voters, but it requires a one-time 2/3 vote for cap and trade expenditures in 2024. So it would really, those are majority votes, except for that year, it'll be a check-in and require a 2/3 vote that one time, and then it will shift back to majority votes for appropriations on cap and trade money after that. But I will say, along with other large districts and also the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association, the district took an oppose unless amended on the AB 617 and AB 398. And that is for a multitude of reasons. I'll go into some of those now, just to give you some background. AB 617 would impose enormous new workloads on air districts without any funding source and without incentive funding to reduce air pollution in impacted communities. In particular, mobile source funding will make it without the mobile source funding, make it nearly impossible for districts to comply with the mandates and achieve the goals of the bills. AB 617 requires, by October 1st, 2018, CARB to prepare a monitoring plan requiring advanced sensing monitoring networks, but that's undefined, for criteria and toxic air pollutants, and requires CARB to then identify the highest priority locations around the state for these networks. And then by July 1st, 2019, districts must then implement the networks. And then before January 1, 2020, CARB identifies additional high priority areas annually. But for districts, the new workloads and expenditures could be astronomical. During the hearings on the bills, it was represented that districts could rely on fees to cover the costs. As a practical matter, district fees on permitted sources can't cover the significant mandates in the bill. As an example, it costs $6,000 a week, or these are estimates from the South Coast Air Quality Management District. It costs $6,000 a week, or $300,000 a year just to maintain one upwind and one downwind PM 2.5 filter-based sampler for toxic metals such as hexavalent chromium, so hexchrome. So again, there are no resources in the bill both to pay for the operations and the cost of putting in the networks, yet the districts are required by law to do that. AB 617 also requires CARB to select areas of the state for development of community emission reduction programs, and then it requires the districts to adopt and implement the programs. Most of these will likely be in larger districts, but may not be the most effective way to achieve the reductions when compared to mobile source incentive fundings for programs like Carl Moyer, which also includes funding for disproportionately impacted communities. So there are some challenges there, and another part I wanted to mention to you is that there were, again in AB 617, new mandates on districts related to best available control technology that are unclear and in some ways problematic. For example, by December 31st, 2023, districts in non-attainment for one or more pollutants are required to implement BARC on sources permitted before 2007 and without a permit revision since 2007. Further, the language could be interpreted to require bark on sources for pollutants that the district is in attainment for. And the language may bar air districts from updating a bark requirement for a source that has had an updated bark requirement in a permit since 2007, even if it's cost effective. So there's some challenges with the language. There is some discussion about ways forward. I don't know whether that'll be possibly cleanup legislation. All of that remains to be seen, but to try to answer some of these questions that are in the language. Clearly, implementation will be a major undertaking for the district. However, as Dr. Ayala said, this is also an opportunity. There will likely be significant revenues from the cap and trade program going forward, and we'll continue to pursue those revenues. The legislature, now that the package has passed, when they come back in August, they're going to be turning their attention to the revenue part of it and figuring out how to start laying out the outline for how that money, future revenues from the cap and trade auctions will be spent. The district has been participating in a coalition to get funding from GGRF funding, Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund funding, and the latest is the coalition is pushing for a 10-year, $350 million per year appropriation for Carl Moyer, which is, as you all know, a very successful program, and so certainly the district would benefit from that as well. And then also pushing for some of the clean transportation provisions that were contained in the governor's original budget or funding for that. So I'll now shift to some of the other bills that the district has been focused on throughout the year. AB 1014 is by Assemblymember Cooper, former board member here, and it reinstates law eliminating over-testing of backup diesel generators at hospitals, while ensuring generators are tested often enough to ensure they work properly when necessary. So the district took a support position on that. That moved well through the legislature and is awaiting action on the governor's desk right now. AB 1036 by Assemblymember McCarty, also a former board member. The bill attempts to site more compost facilities to meet statewide goals for organic waste diversion from landfills. It was amended in the Senate fairly recently to exempt compost facilities, which often represent some of the largest sources of ozone precursors and also public nuisance complaints to districts. From air district permitting requires under new source review prescribed by state and federal law. And so in essence what it says is you're going to get reductions by not putting this organic waste in the landfill. You're going to see reductions there of criteria, pollutant and greenhouse gases. And it says, okay, so you have to count that for the facility that you're now citing, this new facility, and count it towards their baseline emissions. So in essence, you reduce their baseline emissions, but that's not allowed under state and federal law. So we had conversations with both the author's office and the committee consultant responsible for analyzing the bill in the Senate, and the author has decided now at this point to go ahead and make it a 2-year bill and revisit that. And so we'll continue those discussions. AB 1132, which is sponsored by the South Coast Air Quality Management District and supported by Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District, provides air pollution control officers with the authority to issue a temporary order for abatement to immediately protect the public from exposure to toxic air contaminants from violating facilities. And so this would be only if there's an imminent and substantial endangerment to public health or welfare or the environment. There's some key examples of when, at least when South Coast would have been able to use this authority to protect the public. One is in Anaplex, which is a chrome anodizer in the city of Paramount, and it's continued to emit dangerous levels of hexchrome into the community even after the Air District informed them that emissions were endangering public health. And then there was Exide, which is a lead-acid battery recycler in Vernon, city of Vernon, which was exceeding national ambient air quality standards for lead and later was emitting high levels of arsenic. So in these cases, the Air District with this authority would have been able to stop that sooner. And it's narrowly tailored, the bill, and still provides for due process for the violator. And that bill is actually on the governor's desk as well. AB 1274 is also sponsored by South Coast Air Quality Management District and supported by the district here, and it exempts years 7 and 8 vehicles from the smog check program. And instead, right now, cars that are 6 years old or newer are exempt from smog, and they pay a smog abatement fee instead of going through smog. This bill says let's extend that out to years 7 and 8 and exempt those cars, and create a new abatement fee of $24, about 21 of which would go to the Carl Moyer program. So you would then be able to both get additional NOx reductions if you do it that way, and net, and then you would also be able to get the particulate matter reductions, which is very important. And so, as you all know, the Moyer program is very successful and cost-effective, and has widespread support. And so that would bring in about approximately $60 million annually for Carl Moyer statewide, and that would be almost a doubling of Moyer funding, and Sacramento would get nearly $5 million of that $60 million in annual funding. So that's exciting. But it's awaiting hearing in the Senate Appropriations Committee. It has been a 2/3 vote, and it's made its way through. But we're waiting hearing there, and then of course it has to go through the Senate and then back to the Assembly and be signed by the governor. Now I will point out that the thinking behind the bill is that while it's technically a new fee, the average cost for a smog check and the certificate that you go every 2 years is about $48, and so this includes creates a $24 per year smog abatement fee, and so in essence it's a wash, and then the consumer doesn't go and have to get the car smogged, and like we said, the net air quality benefits from doing that are beneficial. So the next bill is SB 49, and this is authored by President Pro Tem of the Senate, President Pro Tem De Leon, and Senator Henry Stern. It was born out of concern that the Trump administration would roll back important environmental protections contained in the Federal Clean Air Act, also the Federal Endangered Species Act, the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act, and Federal Water Pollution Control Act. But as introduced, it would have incorporated, in essence, the entire Federal Clean Air Act into state law. And it would have prohibited state and local agencies from amending or revising their rules to be less stringent than the federal baseline standards as of January 1, 2016 or January 1, 2017, whichever is more stringent. But the stringent is undefined in the bill. So while well-intended, it would have created numerous unintended consequences, both in terms of impacting Air District resources without benefit to public health, and actually having some negative consequences related to public health. So there was also citizen suit provisions that were in the bill as well, or are in the bill, but they've been modified significantly. So Air Districts work with the authors and committee and the committees in the Assembly, and the bill was amended into a form that is much more workable. The latest version, while not perfect, is in much better shape and addresses many of our concerns. So that's a positive, and it's awaiting action in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. SB 563 by Senator Lara. Senator Lara is the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate. Very strong member. He's been excellent on air quality issues, and the bill is supported by the district. And what it does is it establishes a statewide wood smoke reduction program. So I know we have local program here, and other districts have their local programs. But what this bill does is it says let's have a statewide program, and it'd be administered by ARB, but in coordination with the air districts, and it would promote the voluntary replacement of old wood-burning stoves and with cleaner and more efficient alternatives, it authorizes, the bill authorizes funding from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, so those are cap and trade auction revenues, and other sources as well. And the next step, really, if the bill passes, it's both to highlight the issue, highlight the need for funding, and then of course get additional funding. And so that would be step 2. That bill is on Assembly Appropriations Committee suspense file in the Assembly now. It's garnered bipartisan support, and we're hoping to expand that out as it moves forward. Another item, I just have a couple more items, is air district subvention funding, so the additional funding that air districts get from the state. There has been an effort this year to try to increase that funding. It's at $10 million and has been for almost 2 decades. And the Assembly opted to increase that amount. We've been working with them to $20 million in their version of the budget. Unfortunately, the Senate did not agree with that, and ultimately, after conference committee, they took out the increase. But there is a lot of it was positive in that we brought attention to the issue and educated members and staff on the issue, and we'll continue to work on that going forward. And there was also an effort that we made for the district on clean freight funding. This was part of a budget play to try to get $100 million in clean freight funding with a coalition of groups, and that it was close, and Senator Lara was helping to push that item, and it didn't get in. But the good part about it is it brought this, no one's forgetting about that, and we'll continue to pursue that, but it brought this coalition together that I alluded to earlier that's pushing for the other clean transportation funding and the Moyer funding. So those are the bills and issues that I wanted to highlight for the board today. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board?
I have a comment, actually.
Yes.
It will be helpful for me if this was actually on a piece of paper, because it would be maybe on a regular basis to get these types of updates. But I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit overwhelmed with the number of bills that you went over. It's easy for you because you're in the game, but certainly for me, it would be helpful along those lines. So maybe for the future.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll move on. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Any board ideas or comments related to today's meeting or future items? Do you have any announcements? Okay. With that, we'll stand adjourned.